Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Face-to-Face podcast. I'm your host, Mark.
I'm Jerry.
And I'm Sean.
And today we have a very special guest, Sam Altman. Mr. Altman, welcome back to Bros. I'm sure it's been a while. And we're extremely grateful that you took a bit of your time here today to just talk with us.
Yeah, I'm super happy to work that.
And before we dive into the questions, of course, we're going to give you a short introduction. So, Sam Altman is a renowned entrepreneur and technology luminary. He began his entrepreneurial journey by co-founding the location-based social networking app Looped while studying computer science at Stanford University.
In 2013, Mr. Altman assumed the role of president at Y Combinator, a prominent startup accelerator and venture capital firm where he helped nurture and fund numerous successful companies. He also served as the CEO of Neuralink. Beyond his entrepreneurial endeavors, Altman's influence...
Sorry. I never did. Just to cut you off, I never served as CEO.
We'll get back to that in a second.
All right.
We'll get back to that.
Altman's influence extended to the realm of artificial intelligence, co-founding OpenAI, a leading AI research organization committed to advancing safe and ethical AI technologies.
His unwavering dedication to innovation has solidified his status as a pioneering figure in the tech industry. So we'll get back to that. Mark said we'll get back to that because that introduction was actually generated by ChatGPT. And so obviously you noticed that there was a mistake, and we thought it was really interesting. There was an error. So we were wondering, what are your thoughts on the accuracy and the reliability of AI like ChatGPT?
Yeah, we clearly have a long way to go, as that proves. We believe in putting out technology into the world relatively early because I think technology and society have got to co-evolve. So we know there's problems with it. We also know that it is going to get used in ways that we didn't think about, or people want to do things that we didn't even imagine yet. And so it'll get a lot better every year, but there's still a lot of improvement in front of us. This is very early in this new technology revolution. And so it does stupid stuff like that. But I don't think it's possible to make a technology perfect before you release it. At a minimum, you won't make it perfect for people. And so we think by putting these things out, letting the world get familiar with it, listening to input, that's important, but it's still embarrassing when something like that happens. We will make a lot of progress on that particular kind of failure. We'll make a lot of progress on reliability in the coming couple of years.
Yeah, actually, it was interesting because when we were brainstorming for this at first, there was a mistake when we asked ChatGPT, but a few weeks later, when we entered it again, there was actually... they cut out the Neuralink thing.
There we go.
Which was pretty interesting. We thought it was such a big change in such a small short period of time. So
now, don't you think there's a risk of releasing a technology that's sort of not flushed out yet or sort of perfect with its information?
Totally. But I think people are much smarter than I think society gives them credit for. So most people who use ChatGPT learn extremely quickly that you can't rely on this for factuality yet. And they can do other things that are helpful and valuable. And you can use it as a brainstorming partner. It can do some kind of tasks really well, but some things it can't. And it's, it makes up facts like this. But I've been so impressed by how quickly people have learned when to use it and when not to use it and how to use it. That's cool.
Yeah.
So you said earlier that you feel like Burroughs gave you a good bit of your formal education.
Yeah.
So how do you think that Burroughs helped you to pursue your skill set and build your identity? And also, how did it impact your goal for GPT and ChatGPT?
Burroughs was harder for me than college. I worked harder in high school than in college. I mean, I did other projects during college, but Burroughs was tough in a really good way. I learned a lot. And having a broad set of knowledge about many different fields, I didn't at the time understand how important that was going to be. I think if I could go back and be 16 again, I would say, let me take 8 periods of CS a day, and I don't want to do anything else. But the other stuff mostly turned out to be super important in ways that I couldn't have predicted. And so getting the broad base of education and sort of the meta skill of learning how to learn new stuff, that was super important.
Now, I'm actually extremely interested. Everyone asks you about okay, what'd you do in high school with computer science and all this type of stuff? Did you do anything else besides computer science that were counted as your extracurriculars and things you enjoyed?
I did a bunch, and I like enjoyed all of it. I was like, I'm gonna like speed run high school and do like every club, like do a bunch of extracurriculars, study a bunch of stuff, play a bunch of sports, and like the whole thing was super fun. And it was that like broad base of things that I liked. It felt like very crazy at the time, and it's like now I like kind of do a small number of things, but in high school I was like, I'm gonna try everything. And
Kind
that was
of
fun.
building on Mark's question. So you were saying that you got a lot out of other classes, not only computer science. And earlier today, you mentioned how you had some teachers that were really impactful for you. And so I was wondering, could you give an example of a class or a teacher that helped you learn something outside of computer science?
All of the other I mean, I think I'm thinking about this because I'm in what is like now the science building. When I was here, it was like a much less impressive building than this. But all of my science classes were incredible. Like biochemistry, physics. I learned actually useful stuff that in the years that I was like a tech investor, I would like think about all of the time. And I would never have gotten that. I would never have gotten that like even like a little bit of familiarity with all the all these different fields of science was so important to my career as a tech investor. And I at the time I thought I was just doing it for interest, which is still a great reason to learn things.
So do you think that there's a balance that should be achieved with extracurriculars and school, and just a sort of ideal balance that should be achieved to prosper someone being successful?
I mean, probably there is some like ideal time allocation answer, but that's like an AGI complete question. I think in the moment, like figuring out how to like allocate your time properly is really hard. It's always worked for me to just do what I find interesting. It sounds like this like very self-indulgent idea, but in practice, like following the things that like trusting my own curiosity and following the things I find interesting and not doing what like adults told me to do or like experts told me to do, that's the best algorithm I've ever found.
Now, in our introduction for you, it said that you were the president at Y Combinator.
Yeah.
I'm also interested in technology as well. I'm thinking about maybe building a startup when I grow older. What do you look for in founders and creators that really stand out to you?
There's a whole bunch of things that all have to come together, right? So it's like it's not enough to be good at one thing. You've obviously got to be smart and hardworking and determined. Like that all is very clear at this point. But you have to have like a good idea and ideally like a sort of new idea. And when I was first like entering the world of startups, I thought that ideas weren't worth that much at all, and it was just about execution. But now I really look for people that have good and different ideas. That like original thought is such a hard thing. I think original thought is one of the rarest commodities in the world that I've ever found. And clearly ideas matter, but more than that, the ability to consistently have new ideas, to consistently find like new creative solutions that are not kind of the same thing that everybody else is trying to do, that's super valuable. You have to be a good communicator. So like part of running a company is you're constantly evangelizing it to people you want to hire, to partners, to investors, whatever. And communication skills, the ability to sort of get people to understand why you're doing something, why it matters. I think that's like super valuable.
I agree. That sort of mission is extremely powerful. Should we transition to our little gimmick here?
So we've talked a little bit about your Burroughs experience and your experience as the president of Y Combinator. And so in our past episodes with our guests, we always play like some kind of game.
All right.
So this isn't really a game, kind of like a fun activity sort of thing, but it's based around predictions of technology. And so we will say like a statement, and maybe you could provide some insight on maybe a prediction, or maybe we could just discuss it a little bit more.
I'll try with predictions, but this is like a guaranteed way for me to look very dumb in a few years.
Well, I mean, maybe in a few years we could compare what we see in the real world with what you said
Let's
today.
try.
Also, if you want to give like a date you think it'll happen, or
Oof,
like
that's even harder.
time, go for it.
Okay, so our first thing that we have is self-driving cars will dominate the roads?
Dominate the roads, meaning like 90% of cars on the roads are self-driving at any given time?
Yeah, I would say like when you go out on the street and you see cars, it's almost all people in the self-driving cars.
That's going to take longer than people think. Like the self-driving cars in SF now are amazing. And you can look at them and say like, all right, this is here. And you'd say that it's like, all right, it's just to like totally take over in a year or two, but it won't. And society has more inertia. The sort of infrastructure and people's habits have more inertia than you think. So I would say like 5 years from now, certainly most people will still be driving their own cars.
Do you think?
Which I think is not what most of the tech industry expects.
Do you think that if people are not depending on themselves to drive and they get dependent on like AI and technology to drive for them, do you think that will become like an obsolete skill and it'll end up being like more harmful than it is good?
I love driving racing cars, whatever. I think it's like super fun, but I'm totally aware of the fact that computers are like a much better driver than me. But I still want to do it for enjoyment in the way that a lot of people do other things that technology can do better than them. So like, you know,
art, for example.
That's almost a little bit of a different category. Like, sure, you can make decently good visual art with computers now, and it'll get much better in the future. But I think people really care about the human behind art. You like, you want to know that there was like this person, they felt this thing, they had this idea, they expressed it in this way that connects with you. You want to know they exist. You want to know about them. You want to know about like their struggles and life perspective. And that's somehow part of the whole thing. Like we are so deeply wired as humans to care about other humans and what other humans have done or not done, or our relationship with them, or just the sort of concept of them, that maybe at some point in the distant future that goes away to varying degrees, but it feels to me like a really deep part of being human.
I think speaking of art, our next prompt for this was AI will replace artistic jobs, and I wanted to kind of take it a little more specific because I'm a musician. I play the piano. Mark is also.
I used to. I'm retired.
And so, like, I care a lot about music and even live performances. And I wanted to know, what do you think AI's role in music will be, and how much human uniqueness do you think is behind just writing notes on a piece of paper?
A thing that I always like to do is study the accounts of people. The first-person accounts of people living through a technological revolution at the time it happened. So like one example here is reading what visual artists said when the camera was invented and the predictions about it being, the end of art or whatever. I think the answer is you give people new tools and they do better and different stuff. And photography became an art form. And now people have all the digital tools to, even before generative AI, to make amazing art with a computer. And now they've got a new thing, which is the image generators, and they can do all the work there. But it's the human role there has not gone away. They can just produce better stuff. And so I expect the same thing to happen with music. Like, we are going to get much better, subjectively speaking to us, much better music in the future. There will be some that's entirely machine generated, but humans will do amazing things with the tools. We will all care about the human story and struggle and whatever that goes into it. We also have this shared cultural experience of wanting to discuss the same music, even if AI can make perfectly customized music for each of us. So I would say human musicians will still be doing human musician things, but with a new set of tools.
So do you think that the next prompt is space exploration and colonization will become feasible and profitable?
Do you want to go live in space?
I mean, I think it would be really interesting to visit, at least.
I feel like, at least for me, I think humans, they really like
something
the
different.
concept of change. Yeah. Like sometimes I'll just be thinking what would it be like to live
Exactly.
Paris,
like 1,000 years ago or something like that, or
another country,
and have a different experience. Once you live in space for a few years, I feel like it would be the same as kind of living on Earth for a few years.
I mean, I think that it will become feasible, and there will be things about it that are profitable, material mining or whatever. But I think Earth turns out to be like quite great for humans.
Yeah.
And space is like not super hospitable to biological life. So yeah, I'm sure like eventually there will be crazy space stations and gigantic ships. And
What
people
about like terraforming another planet?
again, Earth is really great. I think we will eventually go
Yeah.
terraform other planets because there's this expansionary tendency or whatever. But like, I don't know. I am not excited to like go to go struggle on Mars.
Yeah.
Don't you agree that it's so much easier to solve the problems here on Earth than try terraforming an entire
I do
new
think
planet?
so.
Yeah.
But eventually, like, we do need to go off and spread out.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Space is limited.
But I really love Earth, and I'd rather solve the problems here.
All right. The last prompt.
Yep.
I think this one is a pretty interesting one and probably a very nuanced topic, I guess. So it was AI will develop into superintelligence or smarter than humans, and we were wondering, is that possible?
That'll happen.
Okay, I think that sums up the predictions like game. So I have a question, and this might be a little bit hard to answer, but if you could describe your journey in one word, what would it be?
It's like interesting.
Interesting.
It's been very interesting. It's getting to work on the like frontier of scientific discovery and getting to like be close to the development of a technology that is going to impact many things in many different ways is like, it is never ever boring, and it's like very gratifying to get to be close to that.
We talked a lot about like change and what's going to go on in the future, and one of the biggest changes that is going to happen is the job market. So, I mean, your contribution to the development of AI could potentially leave millions of Americans without jobs. So, what are some potential positive and negative impacts of AI on the job market in the future?
This has all played out like a little bit more stranger than I would have expected so far, and so I expect it to keep being a little bit strange in the future. But the current systems are these unbelievable multipliers of productivity in a way that computers were before them. But for most jobs, like, they don't just go replace a whole job. They just make you more efficient at it. And for, say, computer programming, which is the one I've thought about the most and kind of where we built the first tools, it turns out that if you help people like write more code, you don't run out of jobs. It's just the world needs way more code. And I think it'll turn out to be even way more than we thought.
Yeah.
And there will be some kinds of jobs that do totally go away, other ones that change a lot in the way that people spend their time. But this is like the way of technology. This is how the world evolves. It doesn't mean it's not super painful for people whose particular job goes away, even if it's better for society. And I think like the tech industry has often been very callous about how they talk about that. So I think we will need as a society to do all sorts of things to help people get through this transition. But we're going to do those. We're going to figure them out. And again, it doesn't negate the pain of disruption, but the whole world is going to get so much wealthier and better off.
Mm-hmm.
And, like modern medicine probably displaced a whole bunch of previous jobs, but we decided as a society that's super worth it.
Yeah, actually, I did some research in the past when I was researching for a topic about something like how humans adapt to, technological revolutions. And so one example was like in the agriculture sector, apparently before agricultural technology kind of started expanding rapidly, it was 46% manual labor, and now it's only about like 2%. But even though it's such a big sector, unemployment is still relatively low, which is just an example of how humans adapt, and it kind of takes away jobs, but it also creates new jobs just based on the technology.
One thing that I just increasingly believe is humans have unlimited demand. There's like something very deep about us. We're never satisfied. It's never enough. We always want, we can be in some sense, like we can go like live in a cabin in nature and be super, super happy. But as a species, there's this desire to continue, to progress, to want more and better. And the world does get better. Like we keep inventing better technology. We keep discovering new science, and we keep wanting new things. And I think that's awesome.
Do you believe that all technological advancement is progress without considering morals and ethics?
Clearly not. Very frequently, we as a society decide that there is something that has become a technological possibility that we are not going to do.
Yeah.
And that'll happen again and again with AI.
You talked about you talked a lot about the way that humans have pushed forward through different revolutions. We also have to look at like the pain that goes along with it. For example, the Industrial Revolution. It didn't bring a lot of happiness to people. I mean, like obviously there were more
look at
products.
that one and say it's very unclear if that was a net good for everybody, for most people.
I believe at the start it wasn't a great transition, and that's something I'm worried about.
For sure.
For AI.
I don't think AI is gonna like be great for everybody at the start either, and that's a very difficult and painful thing.
I guess it's a necessary bad for the good.
Well, I think I would take a little bit of a different point, which is I think we have like a moral obligation to mitigate the bad as much as we can, but there will be unknown unknowns.
Yeah.
What about because is it kind of inevitable that these technologies will develop? So while we're developing them, shouldn't we? Are you saying that we should try to?
Yeah.
You
I think the benefit, like my view of history, is that we have, we're talking about these different technological revolutions. My view, that was like how I learned about it in school. But my view now as an adult is that it's been one long technological revolution. It has just been this one continual story of humans are science discoverers and tool builders. And we continually do new things with that. So the Industrial Revolution and the discovery of some new physics in the 30s and 40s, and the discovery of the transistor in particular led to this computer revolution, which was on rails to lead to the AI revolution. And it's all this one story of human progress. And I think that's awesome. And I think that does make lives better and worse, but net better. And you couldn't, and morally you shouldn't stop progress overall. You just have to make individual judgments. Okay, we have this new technology. Should we do this thing? Should we not do this other thing? But the discovery, the understanding of the universe, pushing back the veil on the science we don't yet understand, that is core to the human story.
So on that note, do you consider yourself someone who makes discoveries, or one of those people who is building?
No, I'm not smart enough to make the scientific discoveries. I can put the pieces in place for that to happen.
So probably more of a builder?
I guess so.
I mean, that could be more important.
Yeah.
They're both important.
I guess we could step away from the discussion of AI for a bit and look at one of your other side projects, World ID.
Yeah.
It's it's changing the future of identification. What impact do you think World ID will have, on the entire
Two
world?
things. One, I think we're heading toward this world where proof of humanity is going to be really important,
Yeah.
and you will want some way to verify that I am a human. I'm a unique human. I get access to this thing. This is my real content. And there will be many ways to do that, but I think there's going to be room in there for a anonymous privacy preserving version, which World ID can do. And then also, I think as we get closer to very powerful AI systems, we're going to need new ways to fairly distribute that. Not just the money, not just the universal wealth or whatever, but access to the system. Who gets to use the AGI and how much? Who gets to make decisions about governance? And I hope that World ID is a very early exploration of something that's very deep and important there.
So when I first learned about it, I thought it would be described well, or simplified as a retinal passport.
Yeah.
Do you think that's a good?
That's great.
Okay.
I wish the whole retina thing freaks people out. I think Apple made a really good branding decision with Face ID.
Yeah.
That seems the kind of eye scanning thing really freaks people out. So whatever, here we are.
What about fingerprints? Why did you guys not decide on using fingerprints?
Super easy to fake.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. And how would you fake that?
Tape.
You like make a little device that
Okay.
You can do it with tape as well,
you
right?
can do it with tape as well.
What about the iris? Is that not hard to replicate?
We think we've done a pretty good job so far.
Okay.
So, stepping away from your individual projects, we were trying to get a little more personal, and we were wondering, was there anyone, like a teacher or a mentor or something, or anything that helped influence you and inspire your decision to go down this career path of tech?
I mean, I was like an extreme tech nerd as a kid. I don't ever remember not being one. Like even in elementary school, like every free minute I got, I would go play on the computer. There were a lot of people that like helped me along the way. Miss Kepcha, my computer science teacher, when I was in school, is here today, which is like so fun to see her. It's been a really long time. But it was always the thing that I was just like most excited about. It's like is like what I think about when I have free time.
Now I want to see the difference between like now and programming back then. When I started programming, I started off with learning Python. What language did you start with?
Technically, I guess it was called QBasic on I think like an Apple IIgs when I was in kindergarten or first grade or something like that. I barely remember that. Like that was when you were typing like line numbers and go-to statements. Like it's like a stretch to call that programming, but the first like thing that I would say I actually learned was C++.
C++. Okay. And what did you build like with C++? Were there any projects?
The first like big one was like a text-based game. I would like to find that actually. Maybe I can. What about you?
You mean like projects?
Yeah.
Now I do a lot of web stuff. So, I guess examples as projects. I've built a chat app. I've tried to build a product for Product Hunt, but
Cool.
that didn't go very well. But
I did the Burroughs website when I was like a senior.
did you really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
we saw the receipt.
gone.
Miss Bremner showed us it was
Long
like
gone.
$900 or something, and they paid you to do the website.
Yeah. That's interesting.
So on the concept of like different AI technologies, now I feel like in sports they're starting to implement AI to do different things.
Yeah.
Like I play tennis and there's this thing called swing vision. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it tries to like track the ball and it tries to like basically give speeds and the type of ball you're hitting. So how do you think that that's going to improve? Because right now it's very inaccurate.
That should get really good.
Okay.
I think we're like, I hesitate to say solving vision, but I think we're close to something close to solving vision.
Okay.
Yeah. Also, speaking on the topic of sports, like in soccer for offsides, they have like really
that's
strict, and sometimes it'll just be like not even an inch of a difference
Yeah.
of offsides, and the goal doesn't count. And like even though rules are rules, but it's really frustrating that they have to get so specific after such a big goal. Or
Yeah, but like at some point you do have to like say, okay, here's how we're gonna make the decision, and
Yeah.
it does feel arbitrary, but I don't know what the alternative is.
yeah,
Do you enjoy any
There's
sports?
There's definitely some like leeway in the world that is gonna go away to some degree with AI,
Mhm.
and that feels to me like a loss.
Yeah.
And frustrating, but I don't know what. I guess like one of the like common dystopias of AI is that we all just end up in a surveillance state to like an extreme degree, and that feels really bad. And maybe being like 1 inch offsides in soccer, and having your goal DQ'd is how that starts. That's pretty depressing.
yeah.
So do you feel like sports would be better if they just got rid of AI completely?
No, and I also don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Like I never think it works to just say like we're going to ban a technology completely.
Yeah.
or at least not if there's like such economic value that people demand it eventually. But you can put limits on it. You can say like, this is how we're going to use it and not use it, and that will for sure need to happen.
So, I guess kind of almost to like wrap it up a little bit, since we're all high school students and we're pretty young, and we're also asking for our friends and our community, is there any piece of specific advice that you could tell younger students that are aspiring?
You guys are like coming of age at the best time in history. Like, this is awesome. Not very often do people like graduate high school and like go off and figure out how to make their mark in the world right in the formative stages of a technological revolution, and probably never before in history at such a big one. Like, this is probably one of the biggest leaps forward humanity will ever take. And you all get to go figure out what to do with this new, like, unbelievable tool in the tool chest. So my advice is, like, be grateful and go do it.
Yeah, I think we're just gonna wrap it up now. Thank you for your discussion. Thank you for your
Thanks
ideas.
for having me. Everyone should listen to Face to Face. It's an awesome podcast. I love talking to you guys.
Thank
really
you.
appreciate it.
Thank you for
Congrats
that.
on this.
Yeah, we're just gonna wrap it up. Thank you a lot for.
Do you have any
taking the
questions
time.
for us?
No, this was really fun.
I'm sure this was a upgrade from Joe Rogan.
Big upgrade from Joe
Yeah.
Rogan. Wait,
You should text him that.
I'll do that.
Okay.
Thank you guys.
Okay,
Thank
thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Thank you so much.